let's shape some bread together. So I've put 2 loaves in here and it was too small for the bowl. I did take the dough temperature test and it said it's finished now. It looks a little bit ridiculous. We'll shape this up and then we'll get this baked tomorrow morning and we'll see how it turns out. The dough temperature test says that this is ready. It is quite a small bowl and it is a double batch, so I probably should have put it in a bigger bowl. But anyway, let's take a look and see. Hopefully this hasn't stuck too much to it. Fingers crossed. And as lots of people say to me, my dough is sticky. Why do my hands stick to it? It genuinely is how you handle the dough. Be confident with it. Tell it what you want to do with it. I'm going to get my hands wet and deal with this. So you can see that's a big sticky mess and my hands are not going to stick to this dough. This is really handy to get around the bowl as well. And you will find, especially when it's an overproofed dough, you can do it with your hands, but it can just get a little bit sticky, that's all. Be interesting to see how this turns out, because I did the dough temperature test at the beginning and at the end, but not in the middle, just in case that did change a little bit. Oh, it's actually come out really easily. Oh, it's not as stuck as I thought it was. Oh, that's interesting. And this is the funny thing about dough. It does change and it is different, but it is a double batch, and a double batch will always behave slightly differently. Run this under the tap, it just helps. It just helps a little bit, just stops everything getting stuck to the dough. So as you saw, that was a super, super sticky dough. It hasn't stuck to this because I put some water on it. I put flour down on the side. I'm gonna plonk that there just for a minute. They can be really good just to lift it up off the side. My hands are still a little bit damp. I'm just going to put a tiny bit more rice down, so I kind of moved it around a little bit. But honestly, making sure that you deal with wet hands. My hands, you saw that, and look at the size of that bubble that is on there. This is a sticky dough, absolutely a sticky dough. My hands are not sticking to this. This has been proofing for 10 hours. It wasn't a particularly sticky dough whilst it was proofing. Oh, you know, when I was doing the stretch and folds. But if you see, I'm working the dough very confidently. My hands are not even wet anymore because, of course, I've been handling the dough. But I'm not hanging around on the dough. I'm just doing what I need to do. Put it into a lovely shape. There we go. Still nothing on my hands. And then we pop it into its banatone, so stretch it out a little bit, get it so that it fits, then just knit the top. You actually want it to be a little bit sticky at this point, so it does actually knit to itself. There we go. I'm actually going to put a new net on the top there because that one was a little bit covered in dough. Now it could just be that it looked particularly sticky because the dough had risen so much. I don't know. Can't wait to bake these up, and I'll always say that. Bake up your bread and then just learn from there. So that's just been sat there for a couple of minutes. So spreading out a little bit isn't, you know, I haven't washed my hands or wet my hands since I did that one. I think it is a really good starting point to make sure that your hands are wet. That can be really good, especially if you're a bit nervous about cutting the dough and it kind of getting stuck to it and things. I can still feel it, it's sticking to my hands, but the very second that I feel that stick, I just lift my hands off. So if I was to kind of hang around on it for a little while, I probably would end up in a bit of a mess. But making sure that you put flour on the sides and just handle it with confidence. Just remember, you're in charge of the dough. So that is 2 lovely loaves of bread ready to be baked in the morning. So I'm now going to pop these in the fridge and they're going to stay in the fridge overnight. So by the time I come to bake them, they probably will end up being in there about 15 or 16 hours, something like that. And then we can have a beautiful loaf of bread. I've baked them up and I'm so happy with how they've turned out. They're not exactly the same size because I did just split the dough in half and I didn't weigh it or anything. So one is definitely bigger than the other, but that's okay. I love the split on that. That's so cute. I just literally did straight down the middle and that's come out really beautifully as well. So let's cut these in half and just see, because I said I wasn't sure whether or not the proofing had happened correctly because I put it in bowl that was too small. I'd left it all day, although I did do the temperature method, but I didn't test it in the middle of the day. So let's see what they look like inside with the crumb and see whether or not the dough temperature method did actually work by leaving it all day based on what it was when I first took it. Looks pretty good to me. I love that. So that's a really good distribution of bubbles all the way through, a lovely rounded top. And let's see if it's got a nice crunch. And a good spring back on that as well. So I'm really happy with that loaf. Let's have a look at the other one and just see whether or not they've baked up the same. Yep, exactly the same. Super, super happy with that. Lovely and crispy. Oh, I really love that. And just the shape of that. So it's not particularly triangular on the top, because if it had have been like that, that would have shown that it was slightly underproofed. And then the large bubbles, if you get lots and lots of large bubbles, and especially sort of near the top, that can be an indication that it's underproofed as well. And then of course the overproofed. Generally, these aren't, you know, complete rules, but generally you will find a flatter loaf to be more overproofed. But I'm super happy with both of those loaves, and I'm going to take some of these to my family today. They don't mind that they're cut in half, and I might even have some of these for my lunch today. So there we have it, 2 beautiful loaves.